All right, should we start out with roll call here? Alder Johnson,
Here.
Ace Champion,
Here.
Kathy Hinkfist,
Here.
and Chair Matt Schuler is here as well. And hey, correct me if I'm wrong, Ace, and maybe I just missed, but is this your first meeting with us?
Oh no, this is
I think it's second, maybe.
I think second or third.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I just missed those meetings then.
Yeah, because they did an introduction way back when it first started off, and I think I know I've been to at least.
Okay, well,
My first meeting back.
welcome from me, Ace, because
Oh,
I haven't been officially able to be in a meeting with you, and it's obviously because I was gone. So welcome, we're glad to have you here.
Thank you, glad to be here.
So next agenda item is approval of our agenda for the December 20th meeting in the Community Development Block Grant Revolving Loan Committee. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Matt, could I just ask a quick question? Just because I see under the roll call that Chad Van Handel is not listed, is he no longer part of the committee?
Yes, his term did end and he chose not to renew. So we actually have a new lender that we're interviewing right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So with that, I would move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second? I'll make a second. So we have a motion by Alder Johnson, a second by Matt Schuler. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nope. Okay. Agenda's approved. Let's move to approval of the minutes from the May 12th, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
by Alder Johnson, second by Kathy Hinkfist. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nope. Okay. So we've got approval of the agenda in the minutes. Let's move to regular order of business. And it looks, Wendy, like election of a vice chair is our first item here. True?
Yeah, we've had an empty seat for a little bit and wondered, we have Matt as our chair. And in his absence, it'd be nice to be able to make sure that the meeting goes as planned, and would like to see if one of the members is willing to serve as that vice chair on this committee. I guess no further explanations probably needed, but if anybody would be willing to do that. We don't, as you know, we don't meet very often, and it's not a very large responsibility. The meeting minutes are pretty well, or the agenda is pretty well straightforward. So if anybody's willing to do that, we'd appreciate it.
Do we have a volunteer?
I'll volunteer.
Awesome.
I would nominate Ace Champion.
I would second that nomination. So although, do we vote on this, Wendy?
Yeah.
We do, okay.
Yes,
So
please.
let's vote then. All those in favor of Ace Champion as the vice chair of the Revolving Loan Committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? We're waiting, Ace. We're just waiting to see if
I know,
any crowd's
that's
going to
so bad.
oppose. Nope, all right. Motion carries then, and Ace is now our vice chair, and welcome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that.
Let's go to the next item on the agenda, with this consideration with possible action on the request to write off the defaulted loan balance from Zozo World, doing business as Zozo Kitchen and ZZQ LLC. Loan balance are $16,456 and 13 cents for the building loan and $24,847.41 for the working capital loan. Wendy, do you have an update for us?
This is pretty much, I think some of us are familiar with this particular business. As you know, we've restructured many times. We've tried to do interest only. We tried to work with the property owners, and they just really, between construction on Webster and a number of other things, economic hardships and just maybe some management strain challenges, that they ended up closing and went out of business. And so, these properties already have actually switched hands. The city RDA has purchased those property as a result of some of the defaults. So I need to have permission to write these funds off. That's one of the challenges that we have sometimes with this loan program, is that we're helping businesses that potentially wouldn't get funding any other way. And most of the time it works. Once on an occasion it does not. So.
And Wendy, do
Yes.
we see any other viable options on the property other than writing off the loans? Are there really any other feasible options here?
We've explored all of those, and the business has been dissolved, so there's no.
This is more
no action.
for our purposes, so that I can submit IRS paperwork for the defaults. But I have to have an official write-off on it, so that's why this is on here also.
Got it.
That's Stephanie, our senior accountant. So.
Wendy, I think, we had this scenario once before, not long ago, a year or two ago, with another business. And look, I would make the motion to write off those defaulted balances. But if you could also just clarify that I presume that these amounts would be part of any bankruptcy proceedings, should there be disposition of assets?
We did actually put them on a bankruptcy proceeding, and there were no funds left for us. So now we have no choice but to write off.
Yeah.
So yes, you are right, Brian. That was the right procedure, and I should have added that in there.
Okay, then I would make the motion.
We have a motion by Alder Johnson and a second by Kathy Hinkfuss to write off the 2 loan balances for Zozo World LLC. Are there any comments or questions before we vote? No. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Nope. Okay. Well, that one is approved. And then we will move on to the second, which is, looks like we've got a couple things here. They're going to be similar, Wendy. So this is consideration with possible action on the request to write off the small business pandemic relief loan given to Royalty Pet Foods at 1778 Main Street. This was granted on June 1st, 2020, so just after the start of the pandemic, for $5,000. The loan was 4 years with no interest for the first 12 months and 4% for the remainder of the loan. We were contacted by their attorney, Terry Gerbers, that this business has closed and has been dissolved.
I think that pretty much summarizes the action here, that this business has been dissolved. It was for $5,000. We tried to help this business through the pandemic relief program, but they were unable to make it. And now that business has been dissolved and a new business is in that location, a new guitar making businesses in that spot where Royalty Pet Food was. And we did get formal paperwork from their attorney.
And hey, Wendy, this has nothing to do with the bankruptcy. Did you say guitar making business?
Yeah, we can talk about that after the meeting. But yeah, there's a really cool business that ended up in this spot. So it's kind of interesting how one folds, and maybe we're sad about that. But then it's interesting that a new business evolves in that space, and now it gives an opportunity for someone else. So sad for the one that did not make it, but happy for the one that has an opportunity at this point. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing.
And is there some similarity here to the last agenda item as well, in that the bankruptcy proceedings have happened, the business is dissolved, there are no funds left?
We would be pretty far down on the list because this was a pretty small loan as well, the $5,000. But yes, that is the case, that all assets were dissolved, and we got notification from their attorney, from Terry Gerbers.
Wendy, and I'm maybe putting the cart before the horse here, but we've got an agenda item coming up with a request to convert some of these pandemic relief loans into grants.
Yep.
And so, it seems to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd rather just convert this to a grant and wash our hands rather than having to report it as a default. Is there any reason that we can't just do that?
Well, in my opinion, the default already happened before I got permission to change them to a grant, where the other ones are willing to pay them back. So this is a true but
yeah, and I get where you're coming from, but I think if we're gonna, if we're going to convert all but one, I'd rather not report it as a default, quite frankly. I mean, if the intent, if the desire is to convert the others to grants. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a motion that again, we write this off. However, if this committee takes action on the next agenda item to convert the pool to grants, I'd rather just report it then as a grant and have them all be classified the same. Is there any reason that staff would not want that?
I would check with Stephanie, maybe the accountant, to see if she has any sensitivities one way or the other.
No, it doesn't, because my reporting is going to be pretty much the same either way. I'll have to send out documentation just saying that the loan has become a gift. And it's the same paperwork either way.
Okay, well, that simplifies that. Good question, Brian.
Then we have a motion from Brian about, calling this a write-off for now, but if in the next agenda item, we convert loans to grants, we would do the same with Royalty Pet Foods. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
I see a second from Kathy. So we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from anyone? If not, then let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Nope. So then the motion has passed and the loan for Royalty Pet Foods has been written off, but pending the next agenda item may just be converted to a grant. So let's move then to our last new business item, which is a consideration with possible action on a request by staff to convert the Small Business Pandemic Relief Loan Program, which began in April 2020, to a Small Business Pandemic Relief Grant Program, and restructure the loans to be forgivable since businesses continue to struggle and the pandemic is still making it challenging to operate. Normally, we have 5 businesses that have participated in this program: Aardvark Wine Lounge, Astor House B&B, WGM and Associates, doing business as The Attic, Integrative Therapeutic Massage, and Soseng Custom Tailor. These funds were made available from the CARES funding for small business relief program.
I'm going to hop in real quick. Back when we first got our CARES funding, I don't think we ever realized how impactful the whole pandemic piece would be. So those funds came into our city and right away, and we tried to get those in the hands. And the initial thought of staff was to try and get it to be a loan so that as some did better and paid back, that we could help the next one down the line. As time went on, we got other funding and we had grant programs. And I've had a couple, not all of the 5, but I've had a couple 5 to say, could we apply for the grant to pay off the loan? And I thought at this point in time, since we are not doing any loans with our pandemic relief funds, we're really doing grants with them. In this amount, in this smaller amount of $5,000, would the committee consider switching those 5 loans to the grants, and then that way they won't apply for a grant to pay off a loan. So it just didn't make sense since we did all the paperwork and we had them apply and granted them the funds to be able to do that. So I guess with things going on and the businesses continuing to struggle through some of these shutdowns and not clear future of where everything is going, I'd like to ask the committee to switch these to grants and keep all the programs that we have right now for our pandemic relief consistent.
And so essentially, Wendy, since by the time that, these were first structured as loans, the program has switched now so that this similar type of amount of dollar funding has generally been going out as grants, not as loans.
Yep, I've had 38 grants go out.
Okay.
Yep.
So a little bit, these folks were just early in the process and theirs were loans, and had they been later in the process, they probably would have been done as grants.
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
See, Wendy, it was, when this program was first proposed, I mean, I remember that it was my desire to have these be grants, but it was my understanding at the time that that wasn't an option. And that's why deal. Can you, I mean, I guess the reason I'm asking is, look, I fully support these being grants. I think I did from the beginning.
Right.
I don't know if there's just a misunderstanding or what happened there, but can you just verify that in fact converting these to grants is an eligible use?
Yeah, I think from my recollection from an internal thing, from internal discussions, that it was more of a staff thought to maybe try loans before hopping right to grants, to try and see how much public interest there was in loan related things. Obviously we didn't get as much out the door with only 5 of them, and we still had funding. And so we switched to grants afterward and reviewed and got those out there. So
I could have answered that interest question for you back in 2020. I mean,
yeah, well, here we are discussing that same thing, and in the end, we're right. So thank you.
And this is completely allowable under these funds that were received, Wendy?
Yes, because we took the remaining funds that we had set aside for this loan program and converted them to grants. So we did take the same money and then restructured the program and continued on. But I'd like to catch these 5 up that were the initial applicants and bring them to the other program.
Sounds good. So Alder Johnson, would you like to, go ahead.
is there any remaining funding available in this particular allocation that would also be converted?
I don't think so. I only have I think all of my funds are spoken for. The last grant that I have on my desk, I don't think will be for the full 5,000, whatever the remaining amount will be. And so I have, as of this week, I'll have all of the funds out.
Okay, so I'd make the motion to convert these 5 plus the one from the previous motion, so 6, into grants and forgive the balances.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We got a motion from Alder Johnson and a second from Ace Champion. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nope. The motion is passed. And just one comment here at the close of it, hats off Alder Johnson. I know you were a big fan and were a good and positive instigator of, moving kind of these loan programs, grant programs, things that got money moving from the CARES Act. And, Wendy, to you and the team at the city, I remember talking about this stuff in March and April of 2020. And at the time, never thought we'd be wrestling with this, almost 2 years later. But hats off, I think this was an area where the city moved very, very quickly to try to make something happen and create some liquidity, for the small businesses in our community that weren't going to get touched by, the big kind of pandemic programs. So hats off.
We've had some great stories, so it's been a really important program. So thank you all for your support on that.
Okay. Anything under the informational session?
I think you'll see real quick the information. We've had a couple of businesses pay off since we last met. Monkey Tails has paid off, and then Voyager Sourdough has paid off. So we have 2 payoffs that we have working with. We have restructured Historic West Theater, which we know has been one of those industries that's been hard hit too between pandemic. They were just barely getting going and then the pandemic hit, so that was hard, but they have gotten back on track and everything seems to be doing well there. We have a meeting this week with Badger State to figure out what little hiccup is happening there with their auto pay. But other than that, everybody is current and we're working with them and we have a couple of applications coming in. Tasty Treats on our EDA Economic Development Loan Program. Tasty Treats is actually buying a second Dairy Queen. So that's kind of a fun success story. We've been asked to assign our secondary position in their new loan structure, but they'll be buying a second location. So that's kind of a fun growth story that we were able to help them get their first Dairy Queen purchased and now they're moving on to a second location, or purchasing a second location. But they had to pay, they got a better interest rate or something through this next one, so they restructured their first loan, and then we'll just sign another secondary subordinate position for that, and then they'll get their new loan for their new location. And they didn't tell me where their new location is. Maybe it's not in Green Bay, but that really doesn't matter with this loan. They haven't asked for funds for that next location. But I think that's kind of a neat thing to say, is that we kind of gave them a stepping stone for future growth.
Wendy, just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
When we restructure loans, like in the case of Tasty Treats here, reassigning, restructuring, I mean, fundamentally, would that require the changing of terms? And I'm just trying to think in my mind procedurally, is that something that should come before this body?
It's going to be the exact same terms, I guess. I guess if there is, I haven't seen the paperwork yet. They haven't done it. So if that does happen where there is major changes, if it's the same loan just with a different lender or something like that, I would just continue on so that they can close. I know they want to close before the end of the year. So, but they haven't sent me their paperwork yet. So we'll see how that goes. But had they had it ready, I would have brought it to the committee today. But they are in growth mode. So if it's anything major, I certainly will bring it to the committee.
I just want to make sure we're in compliance. So that's all.
Absolutely. And I will check with our accounting department to make sure that that is so.
Alder Johnson?
Yes.
Generally speaking, it's a subordination agreement because everything remains the same on ours. We're just taking a second position, and those would usually come back before this board for approval once we get a request for a subordination. That's what happens at our other, on our other loans.
Okay.
Yep. All right. And Motel 6 is also looking for another location. So they are looking for a secondary site. So they are in growth mode as well and are interviewing. They've interviewed 2 or 3 other hotels in the area. So that's interesting that they are as well expanding. So kind of some nice positive stories, despite kind of us having to work with some of the ones that just had some struggles through the pandemic time. So that's all the updates that I have for now. The report, I guess, reflects any information that you might have. We also are trying to get funds out. We have $430,000 in our revolving loan fund to get out active in our community. And we'll hopefully be meeting real soon to get some of that out.
Great. Is that it then, Wendy?
That's it.
Okay. Well, with that, then I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting, and very timely, under a half hour. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, hey, everybody. Have a great, I'm